Hi everyone, today's September 14th, 2019, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is GreenRanger, and this week we are in the midst of the Kaiba Cup. Stage 2 began a couple days ago, and as a result, Konami has not done much in terms of events this week. We do have Fantastic Pegasus, that's the main event. Giving us 2 new Toon monsters to bolster that archetype, and that really piqued Doug Dimmaduel's interest, so he has a deck of the week that's not exactly casual. It can be, but he used it to play the Kaiba Cup. It's with Toons, Red Eyes, Toon Dragon, Claw of Heramos, and even the new Toon Dark Magician. We'll go over some esports decks, some ideas of some decks that won in tournaments that you can play in the Kaiba Cup if you have the cards and if you are looking to compete well. We're going to talk about Darklords for a little bit. Darklords are the biggest riser of the last box, and we'll talk about in the question of the week if Darklords are actually OP in the Kaiba Cup. A lot of upcoming news and also some not new cards from the Pick a Gift campaign, but cards that we are getting more than one of. And the most notable one is Cyber Angel Edaton, of course. So, in terms of my week, let's see. So, I got to DLV 19 pretty easily. That's pretty much where I was, where there was pretty much no resistance, and I had trouble getting that win streak. It wasn't really trouble. It was more like a day, not really a day of dueling, but a session. And I realized that I could actually advance to Stage 2 because I had King of Games the previous season. And I just did it. I left those 100 gems or whatever that they were going to give me on the table. I just didn't feel like slogging through a win streak to get to Stage 2. That's just what it was. So right now I'm in Stage 2. I think I'm 5-2. I'm got some positive record, but of course the volume of games is going to keep me down. I don't play this game a ton, so I'll just play it a little more than normal. I'll play it when I play it, and I'll see what DP I get. Typically I don't shoot too high. I mean, I get something like top 10,000 or something, I'm okay. I'm just doing it for the rewards, the basic rewards you get from the Kaiba Cup. And the deck I'm playing, of course, I've been known to be a 6 Sam player when I'm using a competitive deck. And the deck I use, for those unfamiliar, this is the Hatsume 6 Sam's deck. Why do I use Hatsume? It's because Anishi was nerfed, so I run the 1-1 split with the Dojo and Anishi. So I thought I needed another monster that used resources like Anishi did. And Hatsume does the same thing where you could banish 2 and get a monster back from the graveyard, including your synchro monster. So that's why she's in the deck. She fills the same. She's more late game than Anishi. Anishi often is used to kill your opponent. It works after the synchro summon because you have your 2 materials in the graveyard. So it could be used earlier than Hatsume. Hatsume is more of a late game recovery card. So you get your your Shin back from the graveyard. And to accommodate her, of course, I have a level 4 synchro because she's a level 3. And I really like her because she's a water attribute that gives you a different attribute to work for Rihan as well. So the deck, of course, I only have 2 Kizzen. That's just been my thing. I don't feel like I'm just too free to play to do anything else. So 1 Grandmaster to fill that void, 2 Kizzen, 1 Anishi, 1 Kizaru. Kizaru's just been almost automatic as a monster. Especially if you use the trap card to bring him back, so the extra card advantage from Kizaru and 1900 attack. Iru, I have 1 Iru, very good against any deck that tricks you with face down, so he's there. 3 Fuma, of course, as your tuner. 1 legendary secret. This card can get a little clunky if you just use it to fill in the void of the dojo being gone. So, increasing a legendary secret would be nice, but then sometimes you're stuck with the 2000 defender, I guess. 1 Hatsume, of course. 3 Six Samurai United. That's pretty much been automatic with the dojo getting semi-limited. 2 World Legacy Clash. This card, so you can run 3, but sometimes you break, you have no monsters, and you get this, and you're done. So 2 World Legacy Clash, 1 Dojo, of course, 2 Dual Wield, similar to World Legacy Clash. Sometimes you don't have a monster and you're screwed. So these 2 cards are kind of situational, but when you're eligible to have that face-up attack position monster, you're pretty solid. So 2 of each, and then 1 Return of the Six Samurai is my resurrection card. And then my extra deck, 1 Rihan. I've had to use Rihan more than ever, I feel. 2 Legendary Six Samurai Shin, your boss synchro monster. 1 Armadis against Yubel decks or anything like that. 1 Underworld Fighter Balmung. This is to fit for Hatsume. And 1 Mistworm. This is often you choose between Mistworm or Vermilion Dragon Mech. I chose Mistworm, that's just what it is. And Tie-Dye Bind, so I'm using Yusei. That is my deck, and I'm going to run it through Stage 2 of the Casey Cup. And pretty much whenever I'm playing Ranked, I'm just going to use this deck. Even though you can't de-rank anymore, you could use a fun deck if you want. I'm just going to use it to get to the rank I want, and then I could just do whatever. Alright, let's move on to esports this week. We're going to talk about more tournaments this week because there isn't a ton of news going on. 4 tournaments to talk about, some deck lists. Duel Links Meta Weekly 89. And the trend is, this is the tournament scene that relies on the tier list. They kind of follow that lead. And Darklords being promoted to Tier 1 thanks to banishment of the Darklords has shot up representation dramatically for the deck. And even in the top 32, they dominated there. But only 1 deck topped the crack 4, and that was 3rd or 4th place, so they didn't really take the top prize, showing that anyone can still win in this meta, even though Darklords are everywhere. And the first deck is really weird. It is Frost's Golden Castle of Stromberg, Sealed Tomb Stromberg deck, and the cards in it are really weird. So, in terms of the Stromberg core, Greek Life, the Phantom Bird, of course you can't play the deck without it. It is the tutor for your field spell. If you don't get the field spell out, you're going to lose the game. You got your 3 Golden Castle of Stromberg that makes the deck. And the stipulation is you banish 10 cards face down during the standby phase, so you have to run a big deck. And this deck actually makes use of that banish. 2 Prinzessin, that's the direct attacker. And you, this is the main attacker of the deck, of course. You normal summon it, you get the Pumpkin Carriage. There's 2 Pumpkin Carriage, which lets your princess attack directly. And then they can't target the monsters with card effects. And destroy them card effects. And then you also get Glass Slipper out to give your princess more attack. Yeah. Basically, that's what it does. So that's the Stromberg core. This deck runs 3 Lava Golems, which, I hate the card, but when you're a direct attacking deck, sometimes that 1000 burn is what you need, and they're probably going to stack the deck against you, not expecting it, so it's definitely a surprise factor, but it runs 3 Psychic Wielder. This is a free tuner sometimes, and it works because you have a lot of level 3s and level 4s in the deck, and it lets them, it removes monsters at its ability, and it lets you have some level 6 and 7 plays. So this deck runs 2 Black Rose Dragon, 1 Gaia Knight, 1 Hyper Psychic Riser, and 1 White Aura Dolphin. These are generally pretty good. Level 6 Synchro Summoned, and then level 7 Black Rose Dragon blows up the board. And then the coolest one, Grenmaju the Aiza. This is a card that I'll talk about later, but basically It gets stronger with your banish. So every card that's removed from play times 400. And Stromberg banishes a 10 cards a turn. So you get a 4,000 attacker for free. Not for free, but for a normal summon. In terms of other cards rounding up the deck, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 2 Econ, 2 Debunk, which we'll talk about later, and 1 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. A lot of stuff to counter this tournament meta, and especially Darklords. Get to more normal decks. Second place, Minato Light and Dark Spellbook deck. Pretty much the regular deck. They kind of mix up whatever Dark Spellcasters you've got. You got 2 Breakers and 1 Kaiku. And otherwise, it's the same thing with your Silent Magicians, Blue Boys, and your Spellbooks. It runs 1-dimensional Prison, though. That's something to note. Third place, Zico, Light and Dark Spellbooks. Same thing again, except you got 1 of each of the Dark Spellcasters, Breaker, Kaiku, and even my favorite, Magical Something. And in terms of the lone trap card, they use Magical Arm Shield, which is a card we haven't seen in a really, really long time. And third place, Wise Beatdown Darklords. This is a Darklord deck that's missing Morningstar, and Morningstar seems to be a card that's been cut out more and more as one of the big beaters. Probably just to increase the consistency of the deck. Hey Trunade is definitely a card you could just play and win the game, so there's 1 copy of Hey Trunade there. I don't know if 2 is the right call, but there's 1 copy here. That's it for Duel Links Meta Weekly. Battle Phase 14 is next. Darklords, Desperados, and Fortune Ladies made up the most common decks in the top 32. But first place was 6 Sams. Maxino beat down 6 Sams. Very standard deck, I must say. It has Grandmaster, and Grandmaster works especially well with Beatdown. If you're playing Beatdown, you're going to play Grandmaster because he's a level 5. Another body on the board helps 6 Samurai United, helps World Legacy Clash, it helps Rihan. Generally a card you would include now. I just have it because I only have 2 Rihan, 2 Kizin, so that's my fault. Other than that, nothing crazy. 2 World Legacy Clash, 3 Dual Wield, 1 Return of the 6 Samurai. Second place, Wayne Gunoff. I say it like that on purpose. Balance, Triamids, and Triamids, they typically have the same monster and spell core. The spell core is changing a little bit. They're cutting out Triamid Fortress. 1 copy of Triamid Fortress. And they're trying to throw in another trap card or something. But typically you get to play around the trap cards to outfit the meta. And the side deck, of course, is all trap cards. So they could adjust to the different decks they're playing with their trap cards only. And Bunk. This is a card that is just showing up now. One of our listeners, Jake, I think, he mentioned Debunk a while ago when Desperado first came onto the scene. He said this is the perfect card to counter Desperado. I think now with Darklords, this is doubly good. So Debunk's a counter trap. When a monster effect is activated in the hand or graveyard, negate the activation if you do banish it. This is a card trader card, so make sure you have 3. Yeah. Very good card. In this meta right now. Third place, Gnaw with Beatdown Darklords. This one is a bit more spicy. There are non-Darklord monsters, including everyone's favorite, Mobius the Frost Monarch, which is, of course, a tribute summon. When this card's tribute summon, target 2 spells or traps on the field and destroy them. And then there's also Raiko, Lightsworn Hunter. Flip effect, destroy 1 card on the field and send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So, you've got removal, and then you've also got dump some Darklords into the graveyard, which is what you like to do. More variety than the standard toolbox Darklord deck. Even runs Treacherous Trap Hole and Econ for good measure. 2 cards you typically don't see a ton in that deck. And Junior Crazy, Titan Showdown, Darklords. This is a more conventional look. 1 Darklord Desire, 3 Ixchel, 1 Superbia, 3 Nastin, 2 Tetzalcoatl, 2 Banishment of the Darklords. This is notable, though. This guy's more free to play. So he didn't have the 3rd copy, but he made it. 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Darklord Contact, 3 the Sanctified Darklord. So, you can make it in the top 4 with just 2 Banishment of the Darklords, people. Next tournament, Liga Elite Latina 2. Darklords and Desperados, you know the deal, top 32. Those are the top decks. First place, Zerdy, Master of Destiny, Desperado. There's a very cool inclusion here, but not cool for everyone. And that is Necro Valley. 2 Necro Valleys. This is a card that has only been released with a Selection Box Volume 2. And that was kind of like you paid a lot of money, or you got lucky with gems. And this is a card I own in real life, but I don't own in Duel Links, so it's a rare instance of that. Field spell, all your Gravekeepers gain 500 attack and defense. Cards in the graveyard cannot be banished. Negate any card effect that would move a card in the graveyard to a different place. Negate any card effect that changes types and attributes in the graveyard. So, that counters our meta right now with Darklords. And other than that, the Desperado cards, 3 Barrel Dragon, 3 Desperados, 2 Twin Barrel, 1 Temperance, 3 Blast Spiders, 1 Decoichi, 2 Cup of Ace, 1 Fiend Comedian, 3 Paleozoic Canadia, 2 Bad Aim. Second place, Roos, 95, Beatdown, Darklords. Very standard deck here. Dropped Morningstar, you have Uko back, that's the only card you can normal summon. Tribute. There's something interesting going on, though. The sideboard has bad reaction to Samachi. He's not the only guy who has this. And, this is a card I actually played. I had a deck. Kickfire. I'm not sure it was the Kickfire Burn deck. I think it was a little different, but there was a card that did something with bad reaction to Samachi. I forgot. I'm blanking out. It was at the beginning of this game, but that card counters the Sanctified Darklord. That's the card where you could gain life points, and then you make your opponent take damage so they could potentially kill themselves, because the Darklords have a lot of attack. They're pretty much going to take 2,000, more than 2,500 attack, 25 to 3,000 damage, and then they lose the game. Third place, Edu 16, Balanced Triamids. Like I mentioned before, they're starting to cut out Triamid Fortress. There's only 1 copy of that, but you got 3 King Golem, 3 Cruiser. Monster Core is the same, but then the trap cards are a little spicy. 2 Mirror Wall, 1 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, 1 Debunk, 1 Pulse, which is normal, and then 1 Regulation of Tribe. So, a lot of stuff going on. Bad reactions, Samachi's in the extra deck. Third place, Ethan 31, Destiny Draw Darklords. It appears you don't have to play Beatdown with Darklords. It runs 2 Darklord Desire, which is something that you typically only see 1 of. It's pretty much your finisher. You send the card to the graveyard. You send their opponent target to the graveyard. So, gets past, monster protection things. And last but not least, Damage Step 3. And Damage Step tournaments are the ones where they get to fight in point battle rooms. So they're using the point system that Konami gave us for dual rooms for 2 hours. And then the top 8 of each room goes to the top 32. This one we see Darklords pulling ahead of Desperados and Spellbooks. Spellbooks and Desperados are in the same tier in this deck list. Ancient Gears also showed up a good amount in the top 32. First place, Ricky with Beatdown Darklords. You've got a lot of 2-ofs here, and that's the utility slot. So you got 2 Hatrunates, 2, and these are side deck cards. Double Cyclone, 2 Treacherous, 2 Wall of D. So that's kind of what they're doing here. Other than that, you have a pretty standard core of Darklords, 2 Desire, 3 Ixchel, 1 Superbia, 2 Nastin, 2 Tetzalcoatl, 3 Banishment of the Darklords, 3 Darklord Contact, 2 Sanctified Darklord. Second place, Rack BB, Balanced Triamids. This guy, Rack BB, just said screw those debunks and shadow imprisoning mirrors. I'm just gonna put my best trap cards in this deck. So, the monster core is the same, the spell core is the same. You got your 2 fortress, and then 3 Paleozoic Canadia and 2 mirror walls. They also got in the sideboard treacherous trap holes and wall of D's, and of course you run your 2 Triamid Pulse. Third place, Black Snake, Master of Destiny Desperado deck. This deck is notable because they include the throw-in the structured deck box, Genex Ally Crusher. And once per turn, when a monster with the same attribute as this is normal summoned to your field, select and destroy 1 card your opponent controls. I don't really know why this is here, but it is. Any of your dark monsters, normal summon, so it's kind of slow in my opinion, but it is what it is. Other than that, it's the same Desperado deck. It does have Time Wizard. That's a card that's seeing side deck play. Now it's getting edged out. Dimensional Prisons, Paleozoic Canadia's World Legacy Clashes Standard. Good back row cards. And third place, Raw, Balanced Triamids. This one's more outfitted to the current meta. So you cut out 1 Fortress, 2 Debunks, 2 Mirror Walls as well. I think Mirror Wall is probably a really good card against the Darklords. I think that's why it's there. Alright. So I'm done talking about some deck lists. And going back to Duel Links meta, they have a Kaiba Cup edition of the tier list. No movers in the top tier, Darklords and Desperado. I think we can agree to this, that these are the 2 top decks. I don't really have an answer for Darklords right now, I think, as a 6 Sam player. Obviously you want to get your monsters on the board and just negate their really strong spells. I think that's probably going first is probably the move you want to do as a 6 Sam player going against Darklords. Desperado, you have to look out for, of course, the Desperado Dragon, and you want to send cards back to the hand, and you want to use Armadides on occasion. There's no tier 2 decks. That's notable. This is kind of the way of Duel Links meta of saying those are your tier 0 decks, no tier 2 decks. Tier 3 is really crowded. They put in some decks, Amano Stun, Fortune Lady, Neos. They've demoted Ancient Gears and Spellbooks from tier 2. And 6 Sams and Avengers are still here. I disagree with the Amano Stun thing. I think it's a deck that a few players will use, but I don't think it's a deck that is widespread. I don't think we're going to see it a ton. I think it might be good for the few games it wins, but I don't think it's going to be one of those decks that just shows up in your top decks. I don't think so. Fortune Lady, it's kind of like the second best tier deck from the new box other than Darklords. They're the only viable deck. Nordics never really made it. None of the other archetypes really benefited from the box. Neos is back. 6 Sams does decently, but you could kind of say they're in the same boat as Spellbooks, Ancient Gears, and Vendors. I do agree with that. And then they took out some decks from the Kaiba Cup. Blue Eyes, definitely we're seeing this deck a lot less. Cyber Darks, I think the Cyber Dark Desperado is still around quite a bit. Flower Guardians, Magnet Warriors, Sub-Terrors, and Triamids. Even Triamids are out. I think I guess they do struggle against Darklords, but you still see them place quite a bit in the top 4. I think they're fine as a tier 3 deck or tier 2, but they took them out of this tier list. Alright, going to Darklords. They're strong, but I don't think they're OP personally, but I wanted to ask the community, are Darklords OP in Duel Links? 13% said yes, and Konami should limit Darklords. 46% said yes, but the meta will resolve it. 42% said no, they can be beat. Pro Benchwarmer, who has the Duelist inner monologue, If you want another podcast for Duel Links, if you're looking for a second, or if you're tired of this one, check out his podcast. Just search The Duelist Inner Monologue. He says, "This is the power of consistency. One card is all it takes. Happened to Kawaki Meiru and now Darklords. One card turned them from bricks to busted. I love it. But as all things in the meta, new decks and adjustments will even it out." Yeah, I think Darklords are really good. You see them everywhere in the tier list. You don't see them everywhere in the ranked duels like you did with 6 Sams, but you still see them. They're really good. But I think they're at the point where they shouldn't be limited yet. It has to take a really, really good deck to do that. And we are getting a new world. It just depends if Konami reacts to them taking over this Kaiba Cup, I think. I've noticed how Konami limits cards you buy from boxes, so you're probably not going to hit any SR or UR from the deck. Like Banishment of the Dark Lord's not going to get semi-limited. But I think an R card like Nastin or something, or Dark Lord Contact, or Sanctified Dark Lord, I doubt Sanctified Dark Lord, but probably Dark Lord Contact, something will be put on the semi-limit list if they do intend on nerfing the deck. But I think it's a deck that will fall to a lower tier and still be viable despite it being really good right now. And moving on to the next point, if we're kind of moving into the PvE mode, but we're still sort of in PvP, Doug Dimmaduel is here with his deck of the week, and he has a Kaiba Cup edition of the deck of the week with a competitive Red Eyes Hermos Toon deck. It includes a new card, Toon Dark Magician. I'll talk about Toon Dark Magician, but here Doug Dimmaduel talk about his deck that he used to get through some of the Kaiba Cup. So check him out right now.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmaduel with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week I want to give you a little bit of an insight into the deck that I used to get to Stage 2 of the KC Cup. So what I ended up doing was utilizing all the new drops in the current Pegasus event and got my copies of Toon Dark Magician. I'm not using copies of Toon Ancient Gear Golem in this one because it's just not the most effective thing if you're trying to play competitive. But essentially the whole purpose of this deck revolves around Red Eyes Toon Dragon and also the Claw of Hermos, ultimately to get at your copy of Red Eyes Black Dragon Sword, the Dragon Fusion card that ends up equipping itself to one of your other monsters, or I guess an opponent's monster, so be careful with that, but make sure that you equip it to your own monster, and it gains a lot of attack based on the number of dragons in the field and graveyard. So it gains 1,000 attack and 500 attack and defense for each dragon-type monster on the field and in the graveyards. So again, that's a normal card. It's not even that hard to get, so make sure that you get your copies of those. Use your Claw of Hermos to basically send one monster from your hand or field to the graveyard. So you send one dragon-type monster, and this deck runs a whole bunch of Red Eyes. But ultimately, Red Eyes Toon Dragon, which is a level 7 Dragon Toon, 2,400 attack, 2,000 defense. This card is crucial. So what you're able to do with this one is once it's on the field, you're able to then special summon any other Toon monster, ignore its summoning conditions. So you're able to put some monsters on the field and hopefully go for an OTK. So how do we get our Red Eyes Toon Dragon out? It's not like it's your classic Toon monsters where as long as there's a monster on the field, you can special summon over whatever monsters are on the field. You have to get this out old school, so either by tribute or by regular special summon. So we have the Black Stone of Legend. It's an SR from one of the older boxes, or from one of the other boxes, and you could tribute this card and special summon one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck except Red Eyes B Chick. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard except Red Eyes B Chick and shuffle it into the deck, and if you do, add this card to your hand. You can only use one of those effects per turn. So basically what you want to do is just summon your Blackstone of Legend onto the field, which will then take a Red Eyes Toon Dragon from your deck, use Red Eyes Toon Dragon's effect to special summon another Toon monster. However, you cannot summon another Red Eyes Toon Dragon using that effect. So, what are our other Toon monsters? Well, the first one is Toon Dark Magician, and the other one is Toon Dark Magician Girl. In this deck, I run 3 of each. The reason why Toon Dark Magician Girl is still so good, even though it requires a Toon World or Toon Kingdom to be on the field in order for it to stay on the field, which does cause some risk if your Toon World gets destroyed or if your Toon Kingdom gets banished or destroyed. Toon Dark Magician Girl can attack the turn that it's summoned. So if Red Eyes Toon Dragon ultimately special summons your Toon Dark Magician Girl, you'll be able to basically just swing for game, if you're able to have a few monsters on the field. So another option I like to use to get my Toon Red Eyes Dragon on the field is Red Eyes Baby Dragon. So when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck, and if you do, equip this card from the graveyard to it. It gains 300 attack. So if this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can add one level 7 Dragon-type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So what you'll be able to search out is your Blackstone of Legend that way too. So you could ultimately set up some more Red Eyes Toon Dragon plays. As far as spells go, you run the Claw of Hermos. That's ultimately to get your, hopefully your Toon Dark Magician Girl extra beefy, so you can swing just directly for game in the turn that it's summoned. Also, I run my copy of Toon Table of Contents. You could add one Toon card or Manga Rioran from your deck to your hand. What essentially that is used for mostly is to search out Toon Kingdom. Now, we only have one copy of this from leveling up Pegasus, but what it is when this card is activated, banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down. This card's name becomes Toon World while in the field zone. Your opponent cannot target Toon monsters you control with card effects. If a Toon monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish 1 card from the top of your deck face down for each of those monsters instead. So really good field spell card. It could stall you out, especially if you're going turn 1. So why is Toon Dark Magician in this deck also? Well, it's got the same stats as Dark Magician, 2500 attack, 2100 defense. It cannot attack the turn it's summoned, just like Red Eyes Toon Dragon. But while you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, it can attack directly. But anyway, once per turn you can discard 1 Toon card or Manga Rioran, and then activate one of the 2 effects. First, special summon 1 Toon monster from your deck except Toon Dark Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions. That's how you ultimately get at your Toon Dark Magician Girl and swing directly that turn. And the other option is to add 1 Toon Spell or Trap card from your deck to your hand. So what I use that second effect for is, if I'm going first, search out your Toon Kingdom. And then ultimately that should be able to help you stall out to your next turn and hopefully use the effect again. So overall, it's a very simple strategy. This deck is most effective being run with Pegasus. It's a Toon World skill. It's an unlockable skill that you have to try and get through the ladder if you're able to, ultimately get lucky and it shows up in a drop. But you start the game with Toon World on the field. So overall, this is a very straightforward strategy, straightforward deck. But turn 2, turn 3, you are able to ultimately go for a 1-turn kill. Very straightforward, and if your opponent has nothing to stop you, they're kind of screwed. However, this deck is extremely weak against Floodgate Trap Hole. Well, not Floodgate Trap Hole, but the, the Mirror Force card, where if you're attacking directly, you shuffle the cards back into the deck. Toon Kingdom cannot prevent your cards from being shuffled back into the deck. And any card that doesn't target, Toon Kingdom is not going to help you there. So this deck does have some weaknesses, but if you get lucky enough and have good matchups, or if your opponent is not quite expecting Toons and it's a nice surprise, you're able to go for a nice run. This got me from Duel level 19 to Duel level 20 in the KC Cup, and I'm in Stage 2, courtesy of Toons. I never thought that would happen, but it did, so this was always one of my favorite archetypes, and it's nice to actually see it in a competitive spot. It's not the most competitive, it's not a Tier 1 or Tier 2 deck by any stretch, But hey, at least as for like a rogue deck kind of standpoint, it has a nice level of surprise, and it does a world of difference. So I think it's a very good one. I want you to try it out, and if you're not using it competitively, try it out casually. Again, I know that's the point of this casual deck of the week anyway, but this one has a little bit of a competitive spin on it, so I think you'll like it. But anyway, that's it for this week's casual deck of the week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check him out on this podcast every week. He is also on Twitter, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. He's coming up with a new deck every week. And he's been doing decks with different purposes. So this is kind of the Kaiba Cup deck. He had a farm deck recently for skill farming, but mostly casual decks of the week, decks to have fun with. So check him out on his podcast every week. Alright, so we're moving on to cards, and there's only 2 new cards this week, and they're from Fantastic Pegasus. This is the second time we're having this event, and there's 2 new cards here, in addition to some of the old cards he had. Let's see. Toon, Dark Magician, level 7 Spellcaster. Toon, 2521. Cannot attack the turn it is summoned. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toons, this card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, you can discard 1 Toon card or 1 Manga Ryuran. Activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 Toon monster from your deck except for Toon Dark Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions. Or, add 1 Toon spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Arguably one of the strongest Toon monsters we've received in Duel Links. A lot of flexibility, and there's some really strong Toon monsters we have, like Toon Barrel Dragon as from this event, and Red Eyes, and also Dark Magician Girl or Manga Ryuran. And getting the spells is also really good. You could get out Toon Rollback, for example, but this is also Dark Magician, so you could kind of have synergy with Magician's Navigation or any of the other cards. But what this also does is XZs have been delayed, but this can have 2 level 2 rank 7, 2 level 7 monsters, so you could do like a rank 7 XZ summon. So that's something to consider for the future, but I think this is almost an auto-include in Toon decks. Depending on what you're building, of course, but the ability is just too strong. The other card we're getting is Toon Ancient Gear Golem, level 8. Machine, Toon, 3000, cannot attack the turn it's summoned. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toons, it can attack directly. Does piercing damage on your defense monsters, opponent's defense monsters. When it attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. The same abilities as Ancient Gear Golem, except it's a Toon. The piercing ability is useless because you're already a Toon and you're attacking directly, so that is all null and void. What it doesn't do, that's different from Ancient Gear Golem, is it doesn't negate the effects of the face down monster, so there's no incentive to attack that face down monster. It's kind of like having anti-magic arrows, of course, when you're an Ancient Gear, so you could have like an aggro build of Toons where you don't have to have Cosmic Cyclone in the deck, so that's what this is for. That's it for Fantastic Pegasus. I personally am trying to get my 3rd copy of Toon Ancient Gear Golem, and then I'm all done. And that's with no farming. So let's get to the Pick a Gift campaign. And the Pick a Gift campaign this time is more exciting because we are getting copies of cards that we do not have 3 of. That's always a fun thing. And the most notable card is Cyber Angel Edatin, of course. Level 6 Fairy Ritual, 1600-2000. You can ritual summon this card with Machine Angel Ritual. Once ritual summoned, add a ritual spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand. If this card is tributed, make all ritual monsters you control gain 1000 attack and defense. So Alexis leveling up only gave us one copy of this card, and that really... Cyber Angels were tier 0. One of the best archetypes we've ever seen in Duel Links. And Edaton being just one really had no effect on it. And now, the deck is gone. We had Alluring Alexis give us Cyber Angel Izana, Merciful Machine Angel, and that didn't really put her back on the map. But second copy of Edaton does a lot more. And it's all about consistency. This will help you tutor a ritual spell from the deck or graveyard, so you could get that copy of Machine Angel Ritual or Absolute Ritual. It's up to you. So second tutor. We've always had 3 Ben 10, and that card is... Getting a ritual spell is really what gets the deck going, and that's more important, I think. This lessens the need for Sonic Bird. Sonic Bird is a card that you typically slot in 2. You still see it in Vengeance, but it was used in Cyber Angels as well. So it's now it lessens the need for Sonic Bird, since you have 2 Edatons, but you still might include those cards, the Sonic Bird, Senju, or Gishki Chain, depending on what you want to do. But this fits in better. There's level 6 Edaton matches Ben 10, level 8 Izana matches with Dakini, so these cards are pretty good. It helps the compatibility of the deck. There's more synergy going on, and you might be more willing to use Edaton as your tribute summon now. I mean, your ritual summon tribute fodder, because getting the attack of those monsters higher is pretty good in this high attack meta. Darklords are around 3,000, a little less than 3,000, and you could, with this 1,000 attack, you can boost your Dakini or Izana over those monsters. So this is a huge addition to Cyber Angels. I'm not sure if it's enough, but there's a chance they can get pushed back to tier 3 or 4, some lower tier deck, and compete. There's no problem with this using this deck in the Kaiba Cup, I think. No, not the Kaiba Cup, in ranked duels, because you can't derank. I think we have something with Cyber Angel Edaton being 2 now. Here's a card I talked about earlier, Gren Maju the Aiza, level 3 Fire Fiend, attack and defense. Its attack and defense are equal to the number of removed from play cards by 400. Like I said, Golden Cast of Stromberg banishes 10 cards already, so that's 4,000 in addition to what your opponent's already doing. Banishing is pretty strong. Make sure you get 3 copies of this card. You get them through different means, so it's possible you started the game late and you only have 1 or 2 copies of the card, but very strong for this ability. Definitely better than some of the other removed from play cards we've had. And we've also had some support for these cards, like Cataplepus and the Witch of Fate helps monsters. And then Lost Guardian, level 4, 100 attack, defense. The original defense of this card equals the number of your banished rock monsters by 700. So, Magnet Warriors do whatever they want. They run 30 card decks. You might be able to throw this in some Magnet Warrior deck, but this card is just a wall, right? You're gonna have 3 banish, 100, 2100. You could get this card have a really high defense, but if that's your only ability, what's the point of being in the deck other than being a wall? Decks can remove you pretty easily rather than hitting through you nowadays. There's a lot of banish going on, so very, outdated ability. It would have been a good stall card back in the day, but we're not back in the day anymore, so least exciting card of the Pick a Gift campaign. I will say this card might have implications in farming. You might do some shield and sword thing and union attack into your monster, so this card might see play in a farming deck. Alright, so that was a pretty, an eventful week, but there is a lot of upcoming stuff in the offing after the Kaiba Cup ends. So upcoming news, Duelist Chronicles, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 3, and they specifically say Yubel. So This begins on Monday, September 16th to 25th. And Season 3 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually split into two parts. There's the Dark World part, which is the first part, and then the yugioh part. Actually, I may have messed that up. I'm not sure which one's first. Dark World part's first, because yugioh bleeds into Season 4. They specifically say yugioh, so it's possible it's only half the season, and the Dark World season would have required more characters, I think, like those different monsters, but that would have been easier for them to do, like the monster spirits. But Season 3 of yugioh, you might introduce new characters like Blair Flanagan, and I think she's the most notable one. There's Axel, there's Crocodile Jim. So we might see some new characters that they might kind of like tease out, kind of like what's the next character to come to GX, and they might tease out these characters, and see what we say. There's also, Adrian Gecko and Echo and those characters. So there's a lot coming up. Tour Guides Mission Bingo, September 18 to 25. So that's the freebie event going on there. So Sartorius is getting sent to the gate, so his event is over. Biggest news, September 26th, is the arrival of DSOD World. And if you're not familiar with that, that is the Dark Side of Dimensions based on the most recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie. So that is the 26th, so not next week, but the week after we'll be talking about it. What we're going to get, new campaign with a prismatic dark magician with special card art. That's all over Twitter, so you can check it out. 1 UR Dream ticket. I think like 6 other SR or regular UR tickets. They say 1,000 gems, but we don't know. And then there's a new item called Skill Chip. Hopefully this helps you obtain a dual skill of your choice. I personally still don't have Destiny Draw, which is hilarious, and I'm not going to use the skill chip for Destiny Draw, but I might use it on, I don't know, we'll see what I'm missing. It does help, people banging their head against the wall, dual farming and getting nothing, because it's all RNG, but this should help a lot, the skill chip. And there's also a new structure deck focusing on the Magician of Chaos, so this, we've seen the picture, so we don't really know much about it, but that's it. Late September, Duel Quest. And then late September, Unknown Duelist and Duel World. This might have to do with a character in DSOD, because in the leaks they're saying this guy's disrupting Duel Links. Guy or girl, I don't really know. It's Unknown Duelist, and we don't know what they are, but so that's what it is. A lot of upcoming stuff in Duel Links, so stay tuned for that. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Check out the Duel Assessment. Search the Duel Assessment on your podcast. Like, subscribe. Check me out on Twitter. Duel_assessment. Me at GreenRanger CCG. The notes of this podcast are on the duelassessment.wordpress.com. And that is it. Good luck with the Kaiba Cup, everyone, and I will see you next time.